Today we are looking at the Senate map for the 2024 election. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you want more content just like this for your number one source of all things polling and elections in the United States. Now, looking at the safe Republican states, we have the state of Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, the special election of Nebraska, as well as West Virginia, which would be the first flip for Republicans of the night, as well as Tennessee and Mississippi in the safe Republican column, giving the Republicans already 45 seats in the Senate. Now, states like Missouri, Indiana kind of vote, safe red, and usually Montana, but this map is a little interesting because we do have a map where there are a lot of Democrats in some of these deep red states like Montana, West Virginia, and some of the states on the lower level tend to skew a little bit more to the left. But with Donald Trump being on the ballot, you'll notice in 2020, all these states that the candidates won at the presidential level went the same way on the Senate level in 2020, except for Maine that voted for Susan Collins. And in 2016, the exact same thing actually ended up happening. Every single state that voted a certain way on the presidential level, the Senate candidate also won. And so looking at that from that perspective, we can see based on this map, which has a lot of popular Democrats on it, we may potentially be able to have Republicans pick up seats in the House more than likely, as well as the safe states here being California. That's going to be about a 20-point victory according to my forecast here. I basically take into account the previous results, the polling average, and the trend from the previous results, as well as applying the presidential results that I have currently for my forecast, because those apply the coattail effects to some of the states that usually would happen in presidential elections. As you can see here, these are the margins if there was no presidential ticket on the ballot. Republicans would actually still win the Senate. They would win it through the state of Missouri. So that is pretty interesting. In Texas, I believe so. So that is very fascinating there. But looking at this, we actually see in the likely states, or at least the safe states, I forgot to fill out the rest. Hawaii would be safe. We have a safe state of 23 points there. Connecticut would be in the safe Democrat column as well. Vermont, Massachusetts, Delaware. Not Delaware, Maryland. Yes, Maryland is going to be safe. It is a 24-point victory in my forecast. I know the polling data has it within 10, but as of right now, the previous results and the trends in the states are pushing it to the left, as well as the presidential result actually inflating the margin a little bit for the Democrat candidate. Hogan would actually outperform by a point if there was no down ballot races. So that is pretty interesting. And we see Massachusetts being an easy victory for Warren as well. Not only that, we can even go to New York. That is in the safe column, as well as Maine itself. Angus King is the independent candidate who basically aligns with the Democrats, and the only poll has him leading by 24 points. So he is very well on his way to winning that race fairly easily by around 15 points or so. We also have the state of Rhode Island being about a 19-point victory for that Senate candidate there. And that is basically it for the safe Democrat states on this forecast, besides the state of Washington, which is going to be around a 16-point win. Cantwell tends to underperform her election. She would be winning by a similar margin in her 2018 election. For the likely Republican states, we have the Maine, Nebraska election at around a 14-point victory. The polls kind of have it a little bit weird. Some polls have it competitive, but they tend to be very skewed. In our model, the trends are kind of picking up things. We see Debbie Fisher in her own sponsored poll. Donald Trump's Fisher, is up by 26 points. So I'd expect the median result for that to happen. The polling average basically has the race, if we were to look at it, as only a 7-point win. But based off the way the state has been kind of trending in the past few cycles, and the fact Donald Trump may be able to help her out, in the state overall with his coattail effects, she's probably going to win it close to 14 to 15 points. Missouri on the map will be likely, as of right now, it is currently a 10-point win for Josh Hawley in the state of Missouri. Florida is a 5-point victory for Rick Scott. He has had very close elections the past few decades, including his 2018 run for the Senate, as well as his governor elections in the state of Florida. He's always had these very narrow elections in the state. However, due to the fact of Republicans basically netting 1 million votes in voter registration, I won't expect the state of Florida to go very, very competitive. I actually think it's going to be a likely Republican state for Rick Scott as of right now. Indiana will also be in that likely column for Rick Scott, according to my model, by 13 points in this forecast. Now, looking at basically the other likely Republican states, Texas goes likely Republican on the map. It is a 8-point victory on here. And the state of Montana is also an 8-point victory as well. This would be one of the other flips for Republicans. This is a seat where Tester here won by 4 points in 2018, and he actually won by basically the same amount in 2012. So despite the nationwide popular vote getting more blue from 2012 to 2018, the state basically stayed the same, indicating that the race is trending to the left. And with the projected popular vote for the Senate being around D+5, a 15-point shift, it may trend a little bit to the left because of the incumbent, but I seriously doubt that Donald Trump is going to win the state of Montana by a ridiculous amount, such as winning it by around 23 points, 24 points, but only basically have the Republican candidate in Tim Sheehy lose the race. That would be too much ticket splitting in the state of Montana. John Tester has been around since the early 2000s and has kind of LARPed as a moderate, but he's even been pretty concerned about President Biden dooming his chances. And I think that Kamala Harris may hurt him even worse. But as of right now, he's losing the race by about 8 points. And just to look at the aggregate really quick, that's actually in line with some of the more recent polling. Sheehy up by 5, Sheehy up by 6, by 3. So none of the polls recently have had Tester up. That was kind of before. We used to have more polls with Sheehy down. But the last polls ever since April basically have had Sheehy up in the state the entire time. So definitely she has kind of gained momentum in the state of Montana. In terms of the likely Democrat states, we have the state of New Mexico coming in at just 8 points for the Democrat candidate. The heir to Dominici family is basically running as the Republican candidate, so that is a very strong family last name there, and that's kind of boosting the margin there just a little bit. So that's why you're kind of seeing that develop as well. Delaware is going to barely be in the likely column at around 14 points, and New Jersey in this forecast is only a 8-point victory, or 9-point victory, excuse me, as of right now. Kim, the national Democrat against a Republican, you kind of have the state tainted by, this whole thing with Bob Menendez, that scandal of him, with bribery charges, and the polls there don't look the best for the Democrat. I mean, if we were to go there, you'd actually see that the Democrat at most has only led by 9, and I believe Bashaw is actually going to be the nominee, and so that is not a great sign whatsoever. And when you include Menendez, the Democrat is only up by about 6 points, and it's not confirmed whether or not he's going to run third party. However, we do clearly see that either way, the Democrat doesn't lead by any more than 10 points in any of the recent polls. And so that puts the state in the likely Democrat column from our forecast. The state of Virginia is also a 10-point victory for Kane. Hung Kao is a pretty good recruit for Republicans, but it seems to me that that's more than likely going to fall through, as well as the state of Minnesota, where we have Amy Klobuchar, who is in electoral juggernaut. Now, the state has been trending to the right the past couple cycles. As of right now, the state actually shifted from 2012 being a 35-point win to 2018 being a 24-point win, despite the popular vote shifting about 8 points to the right. So the state trended like 15 points to the right on the Senate level from the past couple of cycles. And so that is definitely a warning sign for Klobuchar. However, I do expect her to win the state by about 14 points as of right now. And we have the final competitive races in the Rust Belt: Ohio, Arizona, and Nevada. Ohio right now is a lean margin. This is the only lean state for Republicans, around a 3-point victory or so. It's actually a 2.3 percentage point win for Moreno. Moreno in the state of Ohio in the latest polling has actually been down quite significantly in some of the polling data, but the polls in Ohio for Senate races tend to be very inaccurate. Vance in the average was only up, by about a point and ended up winning the race by 6. And during presidential years, they tend to be even worse because they do not account for the coattail effects that Republicans bring to the tickets, as well as Democrats. I don't know why I phrased it that way. If at the top of the ticket, outperforms pretty heavily, they'll kind of help a Democrat who may be underperforming kind of carry the race over. And so I really can't expect Donald Trump to win the state of Ohio by 17, but Moreno lose the race. I don't think ticket splitting will be that strong in 2024. And so more than likely, I'd actually see Moreno probably winning by 2 to 3 points is the most realistic result. And the Rust Belt at this point is basically all going to be lean Democrat states as of right now. I had them going, I had Pennsylvania going blue already and Wisconsin, Michigan going blue, but with Harris's favorables kind of going up for the most part in the polling data, as well as the national environment getting slightly closer than what it was before. Donald Trump is not outperforming by enough in the Rust Belt to carry over these Republicans in these Rust Belt states. Hovde and Rogers have been decent pickups, but they have Democrat, candidates that are relatively popular. Michigan may be the one that we get incorrect. That race may actually get pretty competitive and could possibly even go to the Republican because of the fact that it's an open seat and the Democrat incumbent was pretty popular. They actually just stepped down and the Republican candidate is pretty solid. And Alyssa Slotkin is not necessarily the best nominee. We even seen Michigan voted to the right of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania during the 2018 midterms. And so there is a big possibility that Michigan could go red before Wisconsin and Michigan, Pennsylvania. But we are going to be putting these all in the lean column as where that is basically where the model sits right now. And the last tilt states, both are for Republicans. Nevada and Arizona are narrowly going towards the GOP with Sam Brown and Kari Lake barely winning the races. Sam Brown wins by half a point. Kari Lake by 0.9%. These races were lean and likely states beforehand, but because of the nationwide environment shifting to the right or to the left, and Harris's favorables getting better, we may potentially have these seats going, tilt in either direction. I'd actually say, based on gut instinct, I think that Gallego would probably end up winning Arizona by like a point or so, but the model does actually show Kari Lake narrowly winning the Electoral College, or at least winning the Senate seat as of right now. And Sam Brown is narrowly winning the Nevada seat as well. Polling here tends to be pretty inaccurate as well during the presidential years too. I mean, McSally was up by quite a bit in Arizona, ended up losing. Same thing in Nevada. The Democrat pollsters tend to overestimate the Democrats quite a bit too. And so this is the current Senate map, 54 Republican Senate seats to Democrats 46. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.